He's physically ill.
Yeah.
He's emotionally, and then the damage you do, like
most of your time. It's a day and one, but
You know, I'd never really given much thought to how I would die, but dying in the place of someone I love seemed like a pretty good way to go.
Y'all, something is seriously off, and people are finally starting to notice. This isn't just another celebrity acting quirky. This isn't fashion. This isn't personality. What you're about to see feels different, darker, almost like something is breaking beneath the surface. Jaden Smith has been moving in ways that don't add up, walking off interviews mid-question, reacting to normal situations like they're completely unfamiliar, smiling, then suddenly shutting down. And now fans are asking the question no one wanted to ask out loud: what actually happened to him? Because when behavior stops making sense, people start looking at the past. And that's where things get uncomfortable. When D.L. Hughley stepped in, he didn't hold back. He didn't blame fame. He didn't blame pressure. He pointed straight at the environment Jaden grew up in, and suddenly, everything got heavier. Then the internet did what it always does. It started digging. Old interviews, old relationships, old controversies surrounding Jada Pinkett Smith began resurfacing. And right in the middle of it all, whispers started growing louder. Not facts, not proof, but questions. And one name that has haunted Hollywood for years, started coming back into the conversation: Jeffrey Epstein. Now suddenly, this isn't just about strange behavior anymore. It's about patterns, power, influence, and a possibility that's hard to even say out loud. What if this was never normal to begin with? Because if even a fraction of these whispers are true, then what we're looking at right now isn't confusion, it's the aftermath.
So you're working with Steven Smith to design Yeezy footwear with Ye. What are y'all cooking up?
Y'all, something about this story doesn't sit right. At first, it looked like another viral moment. Another celebrity clip making the rounds. But the more people watched, the more uncomfortable it became. Because this wasn't just strange. It felt off. Jaden Smith, a name that once symbolized creativity, freedom, and confidence, is now trending for something very different. Clips of him walking away mid-interview without explanation. Moments where his reactions seem disconnected from reality. Expressions that shift too quickly, like something behind the eyes is struggling to stay in control. Fans didn't just laugh this time. They paused, they replayed, and then they started asking questions. What happened to him? Because when behavior changes this drastically, people don't just look at the moment. They look at the past. And that's where things begin to get complicated. Because Jaden didn't grow up in a normal environment. He was raised in one of Hollywood's most powerful households, under the spotlight of Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith. A household that, over the years, has been surrounded by both admiration and controversy. To the public, it was always presented as open-minded, different, unconventional. But critics have long questioned where that line ends, and where things start to feel uncomfortable. And now, those old conversations are coming back.
Dog, it's hailing in Paris, bro. Ice is falling from the sky. It was cold. I knew it was cold, bro. Ice is bouncing off of me, dog. Do you see this? Rain doesn't, bro. It hurts a little bit, bro. What's happening? What's going on, bro? It's bouncing off, bro. You're not supposed to be able to catch rain in your hand. I'm catching little snowflakes in my hand, bro. You're not supposed to be able to catch rain.
It didn't take long for the internet to revisit one of the most talked about chapters, the situation involving August Alsina, a relationship that sparked headlines across the world. At the time, it was framed as complicated, emotional, personal. But now, people are looking at it through a different lens. Because August himself had openly spoken about struggling, mentally, emotionally, physically long before that situation became public. And that's where the narrative shifts. Because critics are now asking, was that dynamic truly equal? Or was there an imbalance?
My daughter had a friend who she brought home from college and she lived with us, right? And she needed a place to stay. And she lived with us, and I accepted her as now she's been there so long and we've known each other so long that she's literally like my daughter to me. Imagine me and my old lady, me and my wife break up, and I start messing around with her.
Yeah, because August Alsina was Jaden's friend,
right?
Who he brought to the house.
So I think it was, and I'm not, look, I ain't in nobody's business, it's their thing, But when they were talking about, well, he was sick and he was mentally sick and he was emotionally sick. Now, that's predatory. Let me tell you something. If you're sick, like he's physically ill.
Yeah.
He's emotionally, and then the damage you do. Like, this dude was talking about right? So it isn't just you having an affair or whatever you do. It's that in your wake, because you felt bad, that dude was up behind it.
Still is.
And you can't tell me that if that were real, he'd never be safe.
Then enters a voice that refuses to stay quiet. D.L. Hughley. Known for saying what others avoid, D.L. didn't sugarcoat his opinion. He pointed directly at the environment surrounding Jaden, suggesting that what people are seeing today might not be random at all. According to him, behavior like this doesn't appear out of nowhere. It builds. It develops. It reflects something deeper. And suddenly, what looked like isolated incidents started to feel like part of a bigger picture. But this is where things take a darker turn. Because once the internet starts connecting dots, it doesn't stop. Old interviews resurface. Clips get reanalyzed. Moments that once seemed harmless now feel loaded with meaning. And alongside all of this, a separate conversation begins to grow, one that has haunted Hollywood for years. A conversation about power, influence, and control. Names start circulating again. Discussions about how the industry operates behind closed doors. About how young talent is introduced into systems they don't fully understand. About how vulnerability can sometimes be exploited in ways the public never sees. And within those conversations, one name inevitably reappears. Jeffrey Epstein. Not as a confirmed link in this case, not as proven involvement, but as part of a broader pattern people can't ignore. A symbol of how deep and disturbing some industry connections have been revealed to be. At this point, the narrative splits. Some people say this is all speculation, that Jaden is simply expressing himself differently. That fame comes with pressure, and pressure creates unusual behavior. But others aren't convinced. Because to them, this doesn't feel like expression. It feels like aftermath. And now the question isn't just about one person anymore.
So are you also gonna expose the fact that you have molested me when I was in your presence as a kid? Asking my moms to not say nothing, to hold that down, and to, keep that secret. And not even a day later, random people tell me, oh, yeah, your mama said this.
It's about the environment, the system, the things that happen behind cameras, behind contracts, behind closed doors. Because if even a small part of these concerns holds weight, then what we're seeing right now isn't just a viral moment. It's a signal. And the deeper you look into it, the harder it becomes to ignore. Because sometimes, the story isn't what's being shown. It's what's being hidden.
I talked about me thinking about suicide. That's real. Like, I have thoughts about that. I remember being just super overly depressed, and not knowing how to deal with this, not knowing, like not having a mother to talk to. My father is dead. I don't have nobody, to teach me. So, like I said, I'm out here I'm doing all of this on my own. And I went through so many surgeries. My mama ain't even check on it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm damn near dead, and losing my vision and you don't check on your kid.
And just when people thought they had seen enough, the story took another turn. Because the more clips surfaced, the harder it became to dismiss this as just another phase. There was a pattern. Subtle at first, but impossible to ignore once you saw it. Jaden Smith wasn't just acting differently, he seemed disconnected. Moments where his tone didn't match the situation. Reactions that felt delayed or exaggerated. And then those sudden shifts from calm to confused, from engaged to completely withdrawn. Fans began slowing videos down, analyzing facial expressions, reading into pauses, because something about it didn't feel natural. And then came the Paris clip. A moment that should have been simple, even playful. But instead, it went viral for all the wrong reasons. Jaden reacting to Hale like it was something unfamiliar. His tone almost childlike. His confusion, unusually intense. People laughed at first. But then the comments changed. Why does he sound like that? This isn't normal. Something's wrong. And just like that, concern turned into suspicion. Because once the public starts questioning behavior, They don't stop at the surface, they dig deeper. And what they found only added fuel to the fire. Old family moments resurfaced. Clips of Will Smith interacting with Jaden in ways some viewers described as uncomfortable. Attempts at affection that didn't seem fully reciprocated. Moments where Jaden visibly pulled away while trying to keep things light.
Are you okay? I'm not gonna do it.
Tries to kiss me on the mouth all the time.
I just think it's an important thing for kids to feel loved. Do you feel loved when I try to kiss you on your mouth?
No, that's probably the last thing that comes across.
At the same time, people pointed out something else. A lack of visible connection between Jaden and Jada Pinkett Smith in public settings. A distance that, to some, felt unusual for a mother and son constantly in the spotlight. Individually, these moments meant nothing. But together, they created a narrative. And that narrative quickly spread. Because now, this wasn't just about one viral clip. It was about a lifetime under the microscope. As discussions intensified, another layer began to surface, one tied to influence and ideology. The family's past association with the Church of Scientology was brought back into the spotlight. Not as a confirmed explanation, but as another piece of a much larger puzzle. People revisited reports about their involvement in educational projects connected to the organization. Allegations of certain teaching methods. Claims made by former insiders. Among them, Leah Remini, a known critic, whose past statements began circulating again, adding weight to conversations that had never fully disappeared. And this is where things became even more unsettling. Because the discussion shifted from behavior to systems, from individual actions to environments. Online forums exploded with theories, some extreme, some grounded in past patterns, all driven by one central idea, that Hollywood isn't just an industry. It's a structure, one where influence flows from the top down, where access comes at a cost, and where not everything is meant to be understood by the public. Within those conversations, the name Jeffrey Epstein resurfaced once again, not as a direct accusation tied to this situation, but as a reminder of how much had already been hidden in plain sight, of how many powerful connections had once been dismissed as just rumors, until they weren't. And that's what makes this different. Because now, people aren't just reacting. They're remembering. They're connecting patterns. They're questioning things they once ignored. So when they look at Jaden now, they're not just seeing a celebrity acting unusual. They're seeing someone who grew up inside a system they don't fully understand. A system that, according to some voices, can shape behavior in ways that don't show up until much later. And suddenly, the question changes. It's no longer, why is he acting like this? It becomes, what kind of environment creates this? Because if the answer to that question is darker than anyone expects, then what we're witnessing right now isn't random. It's revealing. And the deeper the story goes, the more one thing becomes clear. Some truths don't come out all at once. They surface slowly, piece by piece, until eventually, you can't ignore them anymore. And just when it seemed like the internet had reached its limit, the conversation shifted again. Because now, it wasn't just about what people were seeing. It was about what people were starting to feel. A tension. And uneasiness. Like something beneath the surface was trying to break through. By this point, Jaden Smith wasn't just trending. He had become a question. Every new clip, every appearance, every reaction was being watched differently. Not for entertainment, but for signs. And the signs, according to many viewers, were getting harder to ignore. Moments where he seemed present, but not fully there. Responses that didn't match the situation. Energy that shifted too quickly to feel natural. It wasn't just different anymore. To some, it felt like instability. To others, it felt like damage. Because when behavior starts raising this many questions, people don't just analyze the person. They analyze everything around them. And that brings the focus back to the environment, the upbringing, the system. For years, the household of Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith was described as unconventional, open, free, different from the traditional structure. But now, critics are asking a different question. Was it too different? Because what once looked like freedom is now being reinterpreted as a lack of boundaries. What once seemed progressive is now being questioned as potentially confusing, especially for a child growing up inside it. And then there are the moments people can't unsee. Clips that feel uncomfortable in hindsight. Interactions that raise eyebrows. Silences that feel louder than words. Individually, none of these moments prove anything. But collectively, they create a feeling. And that feeling is what's driving this entire conversation. Then there's the influence factor. Because growing up in Hollywood doesn't just mean fame. It means exposure, access, connections, and sometimes pressure. Pressure to perform. Pressure to maintain an image. Pressure to adapt to environments that most people will never fully understand. And when that kind of pressure is combined with constant public scrutiny, the result can be unpredictable. But for many observers, this doesn't feel like pressure alone. It feels layered, complex, like multiple factors colliding at once. Which brings the discussion back to the broader system. The one people don't usually talk about openly. Online communities have been dissecting this idea for years. The idea that Hollywood operates on levels most audiences never see. That influence isn't always visible. That control doesn't always look like control. And once again, as these conversations intensify, a familiar name continues to echo in the background. Jeffrey Epstein. Not as a direct connection in this case. Not as a confirmed link, but as a symbol. A symbol of how deep certain networks have gone. And how much of it remained hidden until it couldn't anymore. Because what Epstein represented wasn't just one individual. It was a system of access. A network of power. A reality that many people refused to believe. Until it was exposed. And now, that memory is shaping how people interpret everything else. So when they see Jaden's behavior, they don't just see confusion. They see possibility. Possibility that something happened behind the scenes. Possibility that certain environments leave lasting effects. Possibility that not everything in Hollywood is as it appears on the surface. At the same time, there's another side to this conversation. One that pushes back. Hard. There are those who argue that this is all projection. That people are reading too much into normal behavior. That individuality is being mistaken for instability. That creativity is being labeled as something darker simply because it doesn't fit expectations. And it's a fair argument. Because the truth is, no one outside that environment truly knows what happened. No one can fully confirm what Jaden experienced, what he saw, what he felt growing up. And yet, the questions remain. Because something about this situation refuses to settle. It keeps resurfacing. It keeps evolving. It keeps pulling people back in. And maybe that's because this story isn't just about one person. It's about a bigger idea. The idea that fame doesn't protect you. That power doesn't guarantee safety. That growing up in the spotlight can come with consequences that don't show up until much later. And when those consequences start to surface, they don't always come with explanations. Sometimes, they come as moments, clips, reactions, expressions that don't quite make sense. And it's up to the audience to interpret them. So now we're left with a situation that feels unresolved, unclear, unfinished. A public figure whose behavior is raising questions. A past filled with moments that are now being re-examined. A system that many believe operates in ways the public will never fully understand. And at the center of it all, a single uncomfortable question. Are we witnessing something ordinary? Or something that was never meant to be seen this closely? Because if there is more to the story, if there are layers that haven't been revealed, if there are truths still hidden beneath the surface, then what we're watching right now might only be the beginning. And sometimes, the most disturbing part of a story isn't what you can prove, it's what you can't ignore. What if everything you've just seen isn't random at all? What if those awkward pauses, those strange reactions, those moments that made you uncomfortable, are actually pieces of a bigger story no one wants to fully address? Because here's the truth people don't like to admit, patterns don't just appear out of nowhere. They come from somewhere. And when a name like Jaden Smith keeps trending for behavior that feels off, while voices like D.L. Hughley start pointing at deeper issues, it stops being entertainment. It becomes a question. A serious one. And the moment people start connecting past controversies, powerful environments, and whispered industry stories, everything changes. Now suddenly, it's not just about what you see on camera. It's about what might have happened off of it. And that's where things get uncomfortable. Because the more you think about it, the harder it becomes to ignore the possibility that something bigger is at play. Something hidden. Something people don't want to say out loud. So ask yourself this. Are we watching someone simply being different? Or are we watching the result of something we were never meant to understand? Because if even a fraction of these questions hold weight, then this isn't just another viral moment. This is a conversation that was buried for a reason. And now it's resurfacing. So don't just scroll past this. Look closer. Think deeper. And tell me what you see. Because the more people start asking questions, the harder it becomes to keep the answers hidden.